You are going to discover so much over the next few days. How to get started, how to find the money, and where is it anyway? How to market yourself and your business. And what are the legal issues that you need to contemplate as you get started in a business? It's a lot, and all of it is going to be valuable. And I'm going to offer this in the end when you're in front of that person who could support you as you begin your business, who could give you the funding that you need to get started. What they're most interested in is you. Yes, they want to know about your expertise. They want to know about your background. They want to know what you've done and how it applies. All of that is certainly important. They want to know what skills do you have and what knowledge do you have. More than any of it, they want to know you. And it turns out that's the hardest part, right? I'm asking you to show up for your meetings, whether they're with potential investors or later with possible customers or clients, to show up for your meetings and be who you really are. Take off the mask, take off the costume, and be you. You know, authenticity is quite the buzzword these days, but there's a reason people talk about authenticity. It genuinely is critically important as you begin your business. So, how exactly do you do that? How do you take off your mask and your costume and show up and be who you really are? It's about getting present. And I mean physically present in this moment, in this place. Fundamentally, if I'm here now, you're getting the real me, right? So I'm going to ask you to do this with me. Put your feet on the floor, wherever you're sitting, at your kitchen table or in the living room or in an office. Put your feet flat on the floor, both of them, and settle your bottom into the chair. And straighten your spine and stack your head straight up and down on top of your shoulders. And let the energy settle. Start to breathe from your belly. Let your shoulders relax so they're back and down, and you're very open across here. So that allows for full breath. It's interesting how our breathing can get so constricted, especially when we're nervous or tense. Do we think we might be nervous in a meeting with potential investors? Could be. So in order to calm ourselves and to project that calm, we want to breathe fully and deeply. And that supports a full, rich voice. So I don't show up talking like a little kid, like this, excited on the edge of my seat, but I sound like a grown-up and very relaxed, comfortable in my own skin. Now, this might be the way you naturally position yourself, maybe. More likely, you're identifying already some habits. So I know for me, I have a tendency to sit with my head tilted. It's just how I've always done it. Well, I need to practice, right? Straightening up. And when I feel like I'm straight, and then I look in the monitor, I see that I'm not. Funny how that works out. You might need to get some feedback to make sure that you really look grounded, centered, energized. And I don't want to get too woo-woo on you, but honestly, the energy is what matters. More than your resume, more than all the experience you've had, more than your study and the knowledge you've accumulated. That's all important for sure. But what matters even more is the energy. That's what people pick up on, right? That's what people sense. They meet you and they get, a vibe, an aura, that kind of thing. I know it sounds kind of corny, but honestly, when the energy is right, you connect with people naturally. And when that happens, the magic happens, whether you're looking for funding or later looking for clients and customers. When we make those connections with people, they feel it, we feel it, and there's an opportunity there. Now, there is one more physical thing I'm going to ask you to consider. When you're looking for money or trust or somebody's time, you want to look them straight in the eye. With the caveat that in American business culture, and it is different in other parts of the world, but in American business culture, we associate steady, direct eye contact with honesty, trustworthiness, being transparent, an open book, right? We feel like we can trust somebody when they look us in the eye. And conversely, when we see somebody looking around like they look shifty, right? Do you see when I do that? That doesn't inspire trust. The other thing about eye contact is when I make eye contact with you, I appear confident and comfortable in my own skin. And appearing that way helps me feel that way. There really is an outside-in effect. The more I look and sound confident, the more confident I feel inside. And for sure, if you're contemplating supporting my business, you want to know that I have confidence in myself, my business plan, and where we're going from here. Yeah? So how do we work with this eye contact thing? We're going to cover 3 different scenarios here. You might be meeting on a virtual platform. More and more that happens, and especially in a preliminary meeting. You might just get on Zoom with somebody. The way you make eye contact when you're on a virtual platform is to look through the camera as if the person is right there on the other side. So right now, it's as if I can see you just on the other side of my camera, between my camera and the wall next door. There you are. Okay, I get it. You're not literally there, but that's how I perceive it. Now, the temptation when we're talking on a virtual platform is to look at the person's picture. So here I am looking off down at the bottom of my screen where you are. I might feel more contact that way, but do you? Not even a little bit, right? For you, it looks like I'm looking at the floor. So the camera is the conduit for real contact. I talk to clients all the time who say, I'm just not comfortable talking to the camera. I just can't just talk to a camera. Here's how I'd like you to think about it. Have you ever had a phone conversation? 14 times today, right? We're on the phone all the time. And if you were going to call a friend and say, I registered for this fabulous conference and I'm learning so much, you would not think about yourself as calling the phone. That would be silly, right? You're calling your friend. The phone is just a vehicle that gets your voice to their ears and their voice to your ear. Think about the camera the same way. It's just a conduit. So I'm not performing for the camera or talking to the camera. I'm talking through the camera to you. And that's the sensation you want to create when you're in a meeting with somebody who might fund your business. All right, maybe you're meeting in person. We do that sometimes. Let's say you're sitting across the desk from somebody, or a small table in their office, or maybe you're at Starbucks. One person. Now, it would be unnatural, for sure, to stare at them for half an hour or 45 minutes, or however long your meeting lasts. That would feel weird. It would look weird. So, of course, you'll look away. You'll glance down at your notes, and then you'll come back. You'll notice somebody walking in the door, and then you'll come back. You'll look out the window, and then you'll come back. But those are brief breaks in the eye contact. And the time when it's most critical to be looking right at the person is when you're talking about their investment. That's when you want to be connected with them and you want them to feel your honesty, your trustworthiness. And you don't get that talking to your shoes. Okay? Now, it could be that you're meeting with a group. It might be 4 or 5 people around a conference table, or it might be in a bigger venue and it's a sort of pitch fest and you're on a stage or a platform with some other entrepreneurs. In any event, when there's more than one person, how do you make eye contact with all those people? Here's what you don't do. You don't kind of scan the room like this. So you think you're making contact because you want to make a connection with everybody. But when you do this, you can see when I'm doing it, I'm not making a connection with anybody. So here's a better way. When you have multiple people in a meeting, whether it's a small group or a big group, doesn't matter. You're going to deliver a thought to a person and then pause and move on to another person and then pause. And then you don't forget that person back there. And then pause and come back to this guy in the front row. Do you see what I'm doing? The reason it works is actually in the pause. I'm not just randomly moving from one person to another. It's very deliberate and it tracks with what I'm saying so that I finish a complete thought, and that's when I look away and then I come back. So notice the difference between that. Say I'm talking to you and then I just pull away right in the middle of a sentence. That's weird, right? It feels like that little connection got broken. But instead, if I'm talking to you and then I look away where there's a natural pause, you know I'm going to come back. And it feels like we finished something in that phrase or that sentence. Now, why is that important? There's the connection. There's creating the sense of they can trust you, they can rely on you. And attention is really reciprocal. I give you my attention, and you are much more likely to give me yours. And don't we want people's attention when we're talking to them? Of course we do. And so the way to get it is to create that strong sense that they have our attention. Pulling away like that in the middle of a sentence doesn't get you there. What does get you there is looking at them. Where there's a natural pause, you connect with somebody else, and there could be 40 people in a room. Over time, you will make those connections with each one of them, and then you will move on to somebody else. And what happens is they know you're coming back, so they're not likely to be pulling out their cell phone, checking their email. They're with you. And that's what you want when you're looking for funders. So in terms of your physical presence, first of all, be present. And second of all, if eye contact is a challenge for you, and it likely is, do some practice on it. I work with clients all the time who say, eye contact, that's easy. That's not a problem for me. And then they try it. Oh my goodness. Especially this situation where there's a group of people, it can be very challenging. So take the time to practice that when there's nothing riding on it, when you're not in front of investors, but you're out with a group of friends or at dinner with your family. Get comfortable with that rhythm. Deliver a thought, pause, talk to somebody else, pause, don't forget that guy here, and pause. Ready? That's your mission after this talk, after this day of talks, because I'm just one of many here, right? You've got some serious experts to hear from today. There is something I'd like to mention about preparing for your pitch and delivering your pitch. The tendency might be to think that people want to know chapter and verse about us. That would be a mistake. I'm going to suggest that you put your focus on them and keep it there. Why? Because attention is reciprocal and because people like to know that you're interested in them, that what you're offering means something to them, that you're not just there with your hand out. right? So you're going to focus on them. I read a story just the other day in the New York Times. It was a Democratic pollster consultant with some successful campaigns behind him. And he was talking specifically about political campaigns. But he said something that made me think about you. And I thought, this is something worth sharing. Campaigns are about the future, not the past. And campaigns are about the voters' lives, not yours. This is true in campaigns. It's also true in sales, and it's also true when we're looking for funding. You know, years ago, I worked at a radio station in Cleveland, and I did the midday show. And it was a little slower and softer than the drive time shows. Things are really fast-paced and short stories, morning and afternoon drive. But at an all-news station in the middle of the day, there's room for longer form pieces and feature type interviews. Our program director encouraged my co-anchor and me to do some, I call them lifestyle interviews. And his suggestion was to talk about the listener. So Ken and I have to say, we made fun of the whole thing. If you're getting your kids ready for school and you don't know what to pack for a lunch, you'll want to hear this next interview. If you're worried about the holidays coming up and how are you going to get everything done, we have an expert to share with you. If you're thinking about going back to school, maybe continuing your education, you'll want to hear from this next guest. If you we made merciless fun of it. We called it the If You Show. And thought our program director was corny and hokey. Honest to God, that guy was brilliant. Because what does that do? When I say if you, you're drawn in. You is a hypnotic word. People's names are hypnotic, but when we're talking to a group, or like in my case, I'm talking to you, I don't know everybody's name. You substitutes for it, and you is a word you almost can't overuse. So I had that experience, the If You Show, and then I left radio. I was pretty good at radio, and for reasons it doesn't matter to get into, that caved in. Now what? I wound up working for a communication consulting firm. And being in business was very different. I was used to writing a 30-second radio story. All right, 22-second radio story. Not a letter seeking an appointment to talk about my company and what we offer. I didn't know how to do that. So I read this book, Writing to Get Action, and I think it's out of print. Short little book, bought it at the store at O'Hare and read it before I got to LaGuardia. And it changed everything for me because the guy said, whatever you write, any business correspondence, start with you. And if you look at the letters that arrive in your inbox, you will notice that they very rarely start with you. Instead, people write, I'm just reaching out to tell you about, I want you to know about, I wonder why you haven't responded to my 14 emails that I've already sent you. I, me. You don't care. They're complete strangers trying to push something on you. Delete is the answer to that. And it's the same thing when you're talking to somebody in person, right? When they start out all about them, you lose interest quickly. All right, if you are a celebrity, you get a dispensation. People really are interested in celebrities, and celebrities can get away with talking about themselves endlessly. For the rest of us, you want to talk about the person that you're selling to, pitching to, asking a favor of. Yeah. Now, you'll notice, you may be thinking about this already. I just told you several stories about what? They were kind of about me. And why do they work? because I told them in the context of you and your experience and what you need to do to be successful in your business. So yes, you can certainly tell stories, and should, because there's hardly anything more engaging than telling a story. Don't leave that out because I said make it about them, but frame your story in the context of what the person is doing, what they're interested in, what they have to offer. And the more you do that, the more likely it is that they get engaged and interested and generous. It kind of goes against the grain, doesn't it? Most of us, you'll notice, have a tendency to go on and on about ourselves. And we think that's important. And it is to our mothers. The rest of the world is less interested. And seriously, when you're asking somebody for their support, whether it's time, expertise, or money, when you're asking them to give you that asset, you really want to focus on them. So I'm asking you to override your impulse to yammer about how great you are, or even about how great your company is. You slide that in here and there, you make those points, but you skip all the unnecessary detail and spend the time instead focused on the person you're speaking to, the investor, the possible investor, the client, the customer, and what they have to benefit from if they get involved with you. What does it offer for them? The more you keep focused on them, the more magnetic you will be. And that magnetism is really a piece of a successful pitch. Yes, there are slides to put together. There are specs to present. You have documents to share. There's data for sure. Remember to tell a story because stories are engaging. Remember to frame your story in the context of the other person's life and business and experience. What does it offer for them? And remember to do all that while you stay present in the room with them. The energy is flowing and you're looking them right in the eye. You think you can do it? I'm betting the answer is yes. And I'm going to look forward to hearing what you all have to say later in the conference. There will be chat available. There will be meetings to have, and you'll have an opportunity to express yourself. I want to know what you're getting out of it, what you're learning, how you're going to put it into use. I'll leave you with one final thought. Before you have a meeting, as you prepare for a meeting, consider this. What do you want the person you're meeting with to think? How do you want them to feel about you? And what do you want them to do? And then frame your message and your delivery to answer those, to give them what they want to think, to give them what you want them to feel, to give them what you want them to do, to create the groundwork for success in your pitch and in your business. Thank you for letting me be with you for a little while, and I appreciate you being with me.